Okay. All right. Starting up. No script. Going. Lately I've been thinking a lot about what actions mean. Um, and what are appropriate actions to take during times like this. Um, this one strikes near and dear to me because my mother was a nurse who, unfortunately, is a victim of the military industrial complex. And, even today, if I were to go on, say, something like Facebook and look up what the memorials say about her death, um, I'm almost certainly introduced with a false narrative. So to me, this is number two, right? Number one was a mother of three. Um, and what doesn't concern? I mean, obviously, I am concerned about what a cartel is doing, what the Taliban is doing. Like, obviously, I'm concerned with respect to my own safety and my wife's. But what I'm more concerned about is the constituency and how they're behaving and acting. Um, right now, for all intensive purposes, what we are kind of in the midst of is a lot of Nazi energy. And there really is no obfuscating these facts anymore. And I think if you are of the opinion that this is not what we're up against, there is really many things to be said about what is going on in that side of it, the coin. How is it that they're getting information? You know, what is it that they believe? What is it that they are saying? And what is it that they are actually doing? Okay. So to really reel this back into for people who want the plausible deniability to say that I don't know what's going on, and as long as I look away, it's not happening, or I'm not a part of it, blah blah blah. At a certain point, we must admit to ourselves as rational thinking human beings when we notice, say, things. I have friends that are school teachers. When we notice someone behaving like a bully, how is it that we behave? And that's an easy for me to tee up for people like school teachers. But when we notice, for instance, in a group of people who are claiming to do one set of things, for instance, I've heard all kinds of arguments about ICE or Border Patrol. They're law enforcement. They're going, they're upholding the law, and only to be met with videos of literally penitentiaries of screaming children saying "Free me," or examples of people who have done nothing but serve their fellow man, only to be slaughtered like a pig by masked infidels at this point. And you're almost, I mean, if you're like every other sane person in the room, you're going, I don't think you're allowed to say at this point, if you are a sane person, how did this happen? Because we all know how this happened, right? Um, but I think what you are allowed to start asking is, how do we make sure this kind of shit never happens again? So one thing I kind of tell my wife is, this was Silent Generation's whole thing, right? Um, this was kind of what they lived and died on. Like if every generation had a motto, the Silent Generation's motto was "Never again." So how did we get to "Never again"? So I am genuinely of the opinion now, given just how much, let's just call this behavior what it is, and I'm just going to use the term Nazism, but it's predated terms like Nazism and Trumpism, right? All we're really witnessing is the exacerbated levels and behaviors of what it means to enable a child predator. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is dodo bird behavior. And if we notice what dodo birds did to go extinct, they essentially ate their young into extinction. And this is essentially what we're doing today. we are under the control of an administration who has now funded a Ukrainian genocide, to my knowledge, a Gazan genocide, to my knowledge. We have now kidnapped a foreign president. Um, and where do the atrocities stop? Right? Like, we can't even get justifications for people's deaths for what the cartel is doing to them. And we can't even get justifications for things like, Camp Mystic, for instance. Like, we can't even get to a point where our society is now talking about the future again and putting accountability exactly where it needs to be on decisions of people like, Ted Cruz, the people who are actually leading the way for what is being experienced in Camp Mystic. You know what I'm saying? And we can't even get our society to a point to actually agree on what needs to be worth talking about. Now, rather than talking ad infinitum about what stupidity means, why nobody seems to understand how to navigate that kind of environment, I'm instead just going to start pointing fingers at history and going like, well, these are actually the people that have already studied it. So my favorite, and I didn't realize how relevant it was going to be today, was I studied him as soon as I went to K-State, but his name was Friedrich Bonhoeffer, and he came up with an entire theorem of stupidity, and I forget, was it like cello? Fuck. There's a different guy who comes up with the 5 laws of stupidity. But in this book, and it's very short, as you can see, there's a PDF if you're so inclined. But basically, he outlines what stupidity is and isn't. And what stupidity is a person who is essentially not acting in a beneficial way to themselves or to another individual or agent. So this means that a stupid person, in many ways, can act self-destructively. Now, please read that stuff for yourself, because when you begin to understand the environments we are now dealing with today, we aren't dealing with rational behaving people. We are behaving with, and to use movie terms at this point, species of animals that are more willing to cling on to a set of self-destructive ideas rather than behave rationally and safely. And I think that's where we need to start drawing the lines in what people are doing, how they're behaving, and how we need to start behaving around these people moving forward. When we begin to sniff out Nazi ideology, or this ideology that says I can go over and overpower someone because I'm, say, bigger than them, or maybe I have more perceived control than them, this needs to be rooted out to its most fundamental level. We need to start making the risk tolerance for what we're experiencing with respect to Nazism 0. And how do you make that risk tolerance 0? Well, we stop cutting the shit around people's feelings clearly. Hate to break it to the left or people who have been talking about what to gender themselves this whole time, but it doesn't take that long to figure out who you are and what you're doing with your life and what you want to be. Frankly, and this is not hate speech, this is not declining you of your feelings, but this is to get back to a point that says society doesn't care about your feelings. Because when we start giving into your feelings, we start giving up constitutional rights. And what we've just witnessed with Alex Pretti's is that we've just now forfeited First and Second Amendment rights if we don't start doing something about what is going on outside. So again, if I can really put the bow on the present of what we need to be doing, we all need to become adults, not just with respect to what we're doing, but with respect to our ideas. This means if you notice someone behaving like a bully, you start stomping on them until they're no longer a bully. And just because we have a bunch of children who don't know what it looks like to stand up to a bully now running the place, well, it doesn't mean that gives you the obligation or the opportunity to say, well, guess I don't have to do anything, because they're coming for you next.